So now people are getting arrested and jailed simply for parents, we know, for not affirming their child's gender and for teachers not pushing that on their children. So, here to talk about this and delve into the details, who's been following the story closely, is David Kurten. David Kurten is the Heritage Party leader over in the UK. It's a right wing populist political group. He's a writer, speaker, political commentator, and Christian. And of course, he is pro family, pro nation, and pro life. And he's been following this story closely. David Kurten, welcome, first of all, to Shots Fired. How are you?
DeAnna, thanks for having me on the show. Yeah, doing well, thank you. I
Great.
wish Enoch Burke was as well as me, but good
Yeah.
to join you on the show to talk about this anyway.
It's crazy. So I heard about this and it was trending all over social media for the last couple of days. And I reached out to him, by the way, but I'm pretty sure he's pretty busy and occupied and can't come on the show, tied down with these other things. But can you tell us more of the details of who this teacher is, first of all, and what happened to him over this week?
Well, he's imprisoned, so he's been removed from society for something that's gone back 4 years. And I think
Okay.
what happened in his school was they introduced a new policy according to the LGBT ideology, and he was told that he had a child in his class who was a boy, but the boy said he was a girl, so he was required to use transgender pronouns and refer to this boy as a girl and treat him like a girl.
So
But he's a
one
Christian.
child in this class.
Yeah,
Or the
that's
okay.
right. Well, I mean, in his class, there might have been more in the
Yeah.
school, but I mean, this is a general thing that's happening. It's not
Right.
just something that would have been happening in his class and his school. This has been rolled out around Ireland, as far as I know, and it's been rolled out around the world. I mean, we
Yeah.
have this issue in the UK, and we have
Of
had it
course.
for many years. I know people personally back in 2017 who were suspended from their jobs for not adhering to the transgender ideology and calling boys girls and girls boys.
Right.
So this has been going on really, since about 2015 was the first time I heard of it. And I thought, this is never going to catch on. This is absolutely crazy and balmy that you can say that boys are girls and girls are boys. But it's been pushed and mainstreamed. And now it's got to the level where we see Enoch Burke, a teacher, a Christian teacher in Ireland, 4 years ago, he's told that he had to do this. He refused to do it. He was suspended from his job. Then he was arrested. I think the first time he was arrested was 2 years ago, at the start of the academic year of 2022. And he spent 100 days in prison because he said, I'm not going to adhere to this, but I'm still going to go to work. It's absolutely wrong that you suspend me as a teacher and stop me from doing my job because I won't adhere to this crazy
Mental
absolutely
illness.
insane ideology.
Hmm. So I believe this was his third time being arrested in the last couple years. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right. He was arrested in, September 22, September 23, and now September 24 at the beginning of each academic year for the
Wow.
schools. They start in September in Ireland and the UK. So I think at the beginning of the year, each year, he's gone to start his job again, just turning
Hmm.
up for work. And the school has got some court order in place saying that he's not allowed to go to the school and do his job. But, I think he's a very brave man because he is
Very.
defying the court order here, which has been put in place on him at the behest of whatever powers that be that are there to
Yeah.
enforce LGBT ideology and make sure that everybody who is a teacher and an educator adheres to this. He said, no, I'm not going to adhere to this. I'm going to stand up for what is right, what is good, what is Christian, what is scientific, what is
Yeah.
just basic common sense.
Right.
And he's been arrested for doing this. But you can imagine this would not even have crossed anyone's minds 20 years ago, maybe even 10 years ago.
Right.
But today it just shows how much we've degenerated into absolute insanity, where someone is suspended for their job because they refuse to call a boy a girl and they call a boy a boy. And they're not going to use their they, them pronouns or whatever it's supposed to use
Right.
for this boy in his class. I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous. So he's
And
a hero.
yeah.
He's willing to put his freedom on the line to stand up for sanity. And I haven't been asked to do that myself, you know. If I was asked to do that, if I was put in that situation, I don't know what I'd do, you know.
Mm,
But yeah, he really is fighting for this, and he is an example to us all to, you know, making a huge sacrifice to stand up for what is right, what is good, God's way, you know, just basic science, as I said, and
yeah,
to stand up against the madness that is rolling out, you know, not just in Ireland, it is in Ireland, obviously, but across the whole Western world, particularly English speaking countries have been very, very hit by this. You know, I'm
right.
sure in the USA, in various states, you've
Oh,
got
it's
certain things
saturated.
going on too.
So, so what was he well, I mean, arrested? I mean, that is just so bizarre and it's so
Mm,
extreme. They went to his house to arrest him.
mm.
What's the crime? I mean, do you know what the crime is coded at? What is it? Just
I think it's contempt of
back.
court,
Wow.
because the
Okay.
school got a court order against him to stop him from going onto the school premises.
Hmm.
But he actually did go to the school premises,
Yeah.
went into the school building, and was just there saying, I'm here, I'm ready to
Mm,
work, I'm ready to
okay.
teach. But he wasn't allowed to do that because of a court order.
Right.
So he was arrested for contempt of court. Basically, it's not, you know, not actually any particular crime, but
Yeah.
just the school had a court order against him to prevent him going to work.
And what grade does he teach?
I think as a secondary school, so he would probably teach lots of different grades. I mean, sort
Okay.
of children from 11 up to 18 years old.
Okay. And so that's the thing when they say it's just there's one child in this class that you have to cater to then and push this curriculum on, it affects all of the children because now all of the children are going to be confused looking at this biological male who now wants to be called a she or they. And there's the conversation thrust into their universe, which they didn't ask for or want. And how do you explain, you don't want to have to explain to an 11-year-old why Frankie at school is suddenly wearing a dress and wanting to be called a girl or they. But that's why they do it intentionally so that this conversation could be had because children, they are naturally born when if they have biological parts that are a male, they think they're a boy. If they are a female, they think they're a girl. And if that is twisted, it's from parents or the media or something else telling them hey, you might be something else. You might be a girl if you're a boy, you might be a boy if you're a girl or something else. You can be something else. Just like, hey, you can be a rainbow or you could be a cat. I mean, children won't naturally think that unless that conversation is thrust into their existence, which is why it's so sinister and evil because it's not natural. It's not what they would normally think.
Yeah,
Um, and,
absolutely.
and
I
it's
mean,
so
you know,
corrupting.
in the good old days, you know, which was only 5 or 10 years ago,
Yeah,
you recognize someone's sex. There
right.
are two sexes, male and female. There
Hmm.
isn't something called gender, which is different to biological sex.
Right.
Your sex is defined by your anatomy and your chromosomes.
Yes.
You know, I know there's a tiny, tiny percentage of people who are intersex who have anatomical
Like a
abnormalities, but
deformity.
in that
Yeah.
case, you look at their chromosomes and you can
Hmm.
tell, you know, instantly from that whether they're male or female. But you
Right.
know, there are people in the past who had gender dysphoria, who think that they're not the sex that they are, but they would be treated the same way as anorexics. You know, if
Yeah.
someone's
Mental
anorexic and
illness.
they think that they're fat, and
Yeah.
you don't affirm them. Oh no, yeah, you're really, you don't go to an anorexic. Yeah, you're really fat. Yeah, I'm going to
Right.
affirm
That's
you.
true.
Stop eating. You know, because they'll
Yeah.
die.
Right.
We have this idea that, you know, people who with gender dysphoria, we have to affirm
Yeah.
their delusion, their
Yes.
unreality,
Delusion.
and then you pump them with chemicals,
Yeah.
and then you cut their bits off, and it makes them sterile, and
Yeah.
you know 80% of them grow out of it naturally. I mean, they all these people who have been, you know, told this, they then can never have children in their life, and many of them have regret, trans
Major
regret.
regrets.
And it's appalling. It's absolutely wicked. Sorry, Lorraine. I'm sorry,
Wicked.
DeAnna. I'm getting, you know, this really winds
Yes.
me up
It's
because I used
me
to be a
too.
teacher. myself. Before I got into politics, I was a science teacher. I used to teach about reproduction, but I would
Right.
never, ever consider telling children this is reality. In fact, it's the absolute opposite of this.
It
It's
is.
wrong and it's wicked. It goes against science. It goes against God's order. Both of those things. And we got to stop doing this.
It
So,
is.
that's why I so appreciate Enoch Burke
Me
standing
too.
up for this and being willing to be arrested and go to prison
Yeah.
because it's the right thing to do. And it's standing up against this wicked, it is a satanic agenda. It comes from the pit of hell, this
It does. It
inversion
really
and
does.
confusing children. It's disgusting.
It
And,
is demonic.
anyone with a sane mind can see that it's completely wrong and mad and insane.
Yeah, it is. And now I
Hmm.
want to delve a little deeper into this Judge Barry and this TUSLA, TUSLA, the Irish
Hmm.
State Child Protection Agency. It's evidently an organization that's saturated with LGBT and gender ideology. And they urge staff to learn about cross-dressing and drag performances and making transgender ideology a condition for fostering children. Do you know a little bit more about this agency, TUSLA or
I've
TUSLA?
looked in, I've looked into a little bit this week because obviously, as you said in the beginning, the judge that ordered his arrest this week had been paid hundreds of thousands of euros, acting as a barrister for this organization. It's a government organization that is linked into the Minister for Children and Disabilities and Healthcare. And
Just like
what
probably
what
our
it
child protective agency that is totally
yeah.
corrupt here in the US.
It's not protecting children at all. It's not really protecting children. What they're doing
Trafficking a
is
lot of them.
pushing this ideology onto children. It's the opposite. They're harming
Yeah,
children. But what
exactly.
they do, they twist everything and they say, if you don't adhere to our ideology that children are sexual from birth, and then this is
Mm,
this is the ideology behind these things. There's the gender ideology, queer theory, children are sexual from birth, and children should have sexual rights, which is so twisted because, anyone up to a few years ago would say, let children be children. You don't sexualize them. They're not sexual from birth or when
no.
they're in primary school. Yeah,
Oh,
okay, they reach puberty and then you have to guide them. Parents need to guide them through that time, but not in primary school. And certainly this gender nonsense is all made up by academics who are complete quacks.
yeah.
They just made it up out of nowhere.
Yeah.
So this TUSLA is responsible for trying to get this new subject into school called relationships and sex education and overseeing that. I mean, this is not just happening in Ireland, it's happening around the world. It's happening in the UK, it's happening in the USA as well. It's actually the branding of something called comprehensive sexuality education that ultimately comes from the World Health Organization. They
Hmm.
want the children to learn certain things. I was looking into this, and you don't have to look too far on TUSLA's website to look at their guidance for what they want to get. This is from a document called Healthy Sexuality and Relationship Development, the Education and Support Needs of Children and Young People in Care. There's a toolkit for educators to use, and this is from the World Health Organization. I recognize it
The
before.
World
They
Horror
just copied it
Organization.
word for word. They say 0 to 4-year-old children, what's normal sexual behavior, touching or playing with their own genitals, attempting to touch or curiosity about breasts, bottoms, or genitals of adults. That's from a document on TUSLA's website to do with this
Crazy.
subject, which is now being rolled out in all schools. This is pedophilic.
Absolutely.
Absolutely pedophilic. You just don't do this with kids. I mean, heaven knows what it's later
Grooming.
on. When you're older, heaven knows what they say you should be getting up to then. But that's for children. It's absolutely base.
Yes.
That the people pushing this should be put in prison, not Enoch Burke, who's standing up for what's righteous and what's good.
Amen. It's really so inverted, and the more parents can wake up to this too and yank their children out of schools and homeschool them if they can, get your hands around your children's and their values, because otherwise their values are going to be taught by these sick pedophiles. And it's really sending your child to a school at this point is like sending them to an indoctrination camp, to be groomed, as a radical Marxist, and potentially even, uh, destined to be a transgender and sterile for life. I mean, it's really sick what they're teaching
Absolutely.
them.
I mean, this is cultural Marxism. It goes right back to the Communist Manifesto, where they want to
Yes.
abolish the family and children should be brought up by state educators. They want
Yeah,
to
it's
destroy
true.
families. They want to destroy everything that's good and natural and normal. And
Yeah.
the thing is, you now have activists going in, deliberately becoming teachers because they think that they can influence children's minds at the youngest age. I mean, it was, I think the Jesuits worked out, they said, give me the boy and I will show you the man. That, the fundamental values that someone has are largely shaped by the time a child reaches 7. So
Mhm.
they tried going to secondary schools and teaching them about this there. It wasn't too successful because they've already got values from the parents. So now what they want to do is go into the very, very youngest of children at early primary school, kindergarten, before they even go to primary school, and change and warp their way of looking at the world there, so that they don't view the world as having two sexes, and the traditional
Yeah.
family is the right way, the right and best model of a family, which it is. But they want to get children to actually just by osmosis, if you like,
Yeah.
psychological osmosis, take on this idea of gender ideology, that they're sexual from birth, and that there are all different types of families. I hear this mantra almost all the time, that families come in all different shapes and sizes, and that means you're supposed to accept them as all equal, when
Right.
actually God's way is there's a mother and a father, they're married, they bring up their boys and girls, their sons and daughters, and in their way, and you pass on values, Christian values, traditional values, from generation to generation. What is happening now is the cultural Marxists are deliberately trying to disrupt the transmission of values from parents to children. And they've already, done it fairly successfully to some extent with past generations, but now they're really, going hell for leather with it in schools at the moment. So, you're absolutely right, DeAnna, to say that, really, we've all got to consider home education or homeschooling.
Yeah,
That's what we need to
absolutely.
do for our children, to make sure that they don't get indoctrinated by this evil, wicked, satanic rubbish.
Amen.